Hello students, how are you doing? How is the experience at home? I hope you are part of this ongoing war against COVID-19. You all should be part of the war. It's all about keeping to the prescribed safety measures. And if we do that, we are actually part of the war. Today we'll be having our government class, this is Ss2, and still on the general topic of national development in Nigeria. Today we'll be treating McPherson, Constitution of 1951. McPherson succeeded Richard's Constitution due to the demerits of Richard's Constitution, criticisms from nationalists. McPherson was introduced to replace Richard's Constitution. At the end of this class, we'll be able to describe the background of McPherson Constitution. That means give an introduction to McPherson Constitution. We'll be able to state the features of McPherson Constitution, identify the merits of McPherson Constitution as well as the demerits of McPherson Constitution. Now, I'm talking about the introduction. Richard's Constitution was meant to last for 9 years before review, but unfortunately, because of the criticism coming from the nationalists, the refusal of the nationalists to accept Richard's Constitution, owing to the fact that Nigerians were not consulted before its introduction, made it possible for the removal of Author Richards in 1948, and John McPherson was sent to work in the place of Author Richards. And McPherson, looking at the defects of the previous constitution, as well as the reason why Richard's Constitution received so much criticisms, decided to set up a select committee to look into the review of the existing constitution and advise the government on what to do. So the select committee worked on that and advised the government of John McPherson to consult the Nigerian people. So as a result, Nigerian people were consulted at the various levels, from the ward level to local government, regional level, and national level. Central Constitutional Conference was organized. Regional assemblies were allowed to approve the new constitution before it was sent to the Governor General in the person of John McPherson. So that was how McPherson Constitution was introduced in 1951. Now let's look at the features of McPherson Constitution. From what we have here, you can see the first one was that the Central Legislative Council was renamed. Central Legislative Council was established by Richard's Constitution in 1946 against Legislative Council that was established by Clifford in 1922. So, if you remember, Clifford Legislative Council legislated for the southern Nigeria only, with the exclusion of the northern region. Then when Richards came, Richards called it Central Legislative Council so that it would be for the entire nation, and it legislated for the entire country. But now, McPherson Constitution renamed the same Legislative Council and called it House of Representatives. And it was made up of 149 members. 36 of them were Nigerians, 68 represented the North, 34 the West, 34 the East. So, and remember that the Governor General was also a member of this council. Now, the Central Executive Council was renamed Council of Ministers, and Nigerians were appointed as ministers. So Nigerians were members of this Council of Ministers. Remember, under Richard's Constitution, it was called Central Executive Council. 2 Nigerians were appointed there. But you can see the population of Nigeria in this council. 12 Nigerians, 4 from the North, 4 from the East, 1 from the West. And they were made ministers. Nigerians were appointed, okay, that's the 4th one. The Constitution established bicameral legislation in the northern and the western regions. If you remember Richard's Constitution, it established bicameral legislature, that's a 2-chamber legislature in the north, unicameral in the east, unicameral in the west. But this time around, the bicameral legislature was extended to the west. The essence of this bicameral was, it implied that the colonial masters recognized the traditional rulers, because it talks about the existence of 2 chambers, House of Assembly and the House of Chiefs. So House of Chiefs was made up of the traditional rulers, the chiefs. So what we're saying here is that Macpherson extended that benefit to the west, while the eastern region remained with a unicameral legislature. Now the regional assemblies were empowered to make laws. So you can see an improvement. Unlike Richard's regional assemblies. If you remember, Richard's Constitution divided Nigeria into 3 regions and established regional councils. Now, these regional councils were not allowed to make laws. The lawmaking aspect of it, which is the assembly, were not empowered to make laws. So they only served as consultation centers, a link between the central government and the native authorities, and as well as electoral college. Through them, people were elected into Central Legislative Council. But with Macpherson Constitution, they were empowered to make laws in specific matters. Now, each regional council, executive council, was composed of lieutenant governor, 5 officials, and the 9 ministers. That was the composition of regional executive council. So you can see a manifestation of a federal system, even though it wasn't a true federal system. At the central level, we had executive council, legislative council. At the regional level, we had executive council as well as legislative council, which was called the regional assembly. Now, the 7th feature of Macpherson Constitution was that there were both direct and indirect election systems. A direct election system allows people or qualified citizens to participate in the process of election. Indirect does not allow all qualified people. Rather, it allows some selected individuals, whom we refer to as delegates, to elect people on behalf of the general public. So these 2 election systems were allowed. In the north, both direct and indirect were used to elect people, as well as in the south. So both were allowed. Now, more people this time around were elected and appointed in the regional councils. More people were. Unlike under Richard's Constitution, majority were appointed by the native authority. Native authority were nominated their people to represent them in the regional council. But this time around, more people were elected. Then the last one, the last feature of McPherson Constitution was that only male taxpayers voted in the north, while both male and female voted in the west and the east. So that limited franchise was still going on in the north, that women were not allowed to participate. It was adult male suffrage. So only those adult male who paid tax were allowed to vote. But in the southern part of Nigeria, it was a bit relaxed, that women were part of the electoral process. Now let's look at the merits of McPherson Constitution. One merit is that it was people's constitution. Why do we say it was people's constitution? People were consulted at all levels of government, from the ward up to the national level. People were consulted. So you can see the difference between McPherson Constitution and the Richards Constitution. Under the Richards Constitution, people were not consulted. It was drafted and was adopted by the government without recognizing or allowing for the participation of the people the Constitution was intended for. So with this, we can comfortably say that McPherson Constitution was people's constitution because of popular consultation. Now, the regional assemblies were empowered to make laws. It's an advantage. Under the Richards Constitution, the regional assemblies were figureheads. They discussed laws, discussed bills, and it ended there. For here, they were permitted to make laws. Now, the legislative councils were dominated by elected Nigerians. You can see 136 Nigerians elected into the legislative council that was renamed House of Representatives. So it was an improvement from being nominated to being elected. Okay? Now, Nigerians were appointed ministers at the regional and the central levels. I told us before now that at the Central Executive Council, which was called Council of Ministers, 12 Nigerians were appointed ministers. The same thing at the regional level, the Regional Executive Council. Nigerians were also appointed ministers, and that was for the first time in Nigeria that Nigerian people were appointed ministers. Okay? Now, bicameral legislation was extended to the West. I said that before. It's an advantage. Initially, it was only in the North, but now it's extended to the West, just with the exclusion of the East. Revenue sharing between the regional and the central government was for the first time practiced. So with this, we can say that what was practiced under McPherson Constitution was a quasi-federal system. You can see revenue sharing between the regional and the central government was practiced. Not that there was an adopted formula, but there was, a practice of it, that the regional governments were, allocated with some funds. But by the time we discuss the Britain Constitution, we see that a formula was adopted, and a revenue allocation formula that was focused based on derivation was adopted. Okay, now let's look at the merits of McPherson Constitution. The first one here, I have said it before now, that it introduced a quasi-federal system. So it wasn't a true federal system, it was fake. The structure was there, the practice was not complete. So that cannot be called a true federal system. So it was actually a quasi-federal system. Now, the second one was that the decisions of regional assemblies were subject to the approval of the central government. What does that mean? That those regional assemblies that were created by Richard's Constitution, but we are just figureheads. We are under McPherson Constitution permitted to make laws. Now, the laws, before they become laws, that is the bills before they become laws, must be submitted to the central government for a final approval. So you can see that it was indeed not a true federal system. Whatever policy initiated by the regional executive council must be submitted to the central government for approval. And whatever bill discussed to become law by the assembly, regional assemblies, must be submitted to the central government for final approval. Okay? Now, ministers were reduced to spokespersons of their ministries. Remember, we rejoiced and celebrated the appointment of ministers under John McPherson administration, which was provided by the Constitution. But those ministers were not empowered or given full ministerial responsibility. They were mere spokespersons and were not responsible for their ministries. The advantage there was that Nigerians were appointed ministers. The disadvantage there was that they were not given full ministerial responsibility. So they were like ministers without portfolio. The next one was that only male taxpayers were allowed to vote in the north. Women were not allowed to vote. You see, why would they allow only male taxpayers? Remember, even the pre-colonial political system, taxation was an already existing practice in the north. So it was serious there. That even under colonial administration, you are required to pay tax to qualify to participate in the electoral process. So only male, so limited franchise was still adopted in the northern region. So that is a demerit. Now the governor exercised veto power. The governor general was a member of the executive council as well as the legislative council, and he had power to reject the advice of the executive council, because the executive council has the responsibility of advising the governor general on policy matters. So he could reject their advice, he could reject their decision, as well as even the decisions of the legislative council. The governor, with the approval of the Secretary of State for the Colonies, would also reject their decision. So the governor exercised so much power that enabled him to veto the decisions of these two councils. Now the executive council was still dominated, controlled by the British. It was still under the control of the British, the executive council. Okay? The governor general was in charge. There was no provision for the office of the prime minister. There was no provision for the office of the speaker. So he had so much power he exercised. It was dominated by the British colonialists. So that is the end of our work under McPherson Constitution. In our next class, we'll be treating the 10 Constitution, which we know that indeed that Constitution introduced what we call true federalism in Nigeria. Okay? These following assignments are wired questions. So you can see the years. I expect you to attempt them and send your answer to our Google Classroom. Stay safe. God bless us all. Bye.